All right, today we are joined by the legendary David Ruprecht. David, how are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. We are so excited to have you on the show. Obviously, one of the things that you are most well known for is Supermarket Sweep, but we're going to kind of dabble around today and we're going to hit the sweep hard, but we're going to hit some other things as well. So, jumping right into it, kind of walk us through how did Supermarket Sweep come to be for you? What was that process like getting there?
It had been a series for a couple of years back in the I think 70s. Uh, didn't didn't do that well, and the producer uh, was approached actually by Lifetime in the early days of Lifetime. They wanted to appeal to a broader audience, and so I met with the producer. Was meeting potential hosts. And in the meeting, it turned out we both had the same favorite movie, which was The Producers, the original one with Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder. And we chawed and talked, and he had a music background. He had been a timpanist with the New York Symphony, and I have done musicals my whole life. So we really hit it off and bonded, and he went with me, and we did the pilot in a grocery store out in the San Fernando Valley. And Lifetime bought it, and 14 years later, it was still going strong.
The rest is history, as they say. So, kind of walk us through a typical day for you on the set of Supermarket Sweep. Did you film them back to back, or what did that look like?
It was different than most shows. Most shows, they've got their set, Wheel, Jeopardy. They shoot a half-hour show, and price is done in an hour. And the one or two times I went to see it, they'd shoot it, and then when they broke for commercial, they'd break, and Barker would sit there and just talk to the audience, come back from commercial break, go back. Our show, we did 6 a day instead of 5, which most game shows do. And because of the configuration, we would do the first half of each show where they're standing behind the podiums, hitting buzzers and answering questions. Then we'd take a dinner break. They'd rearrange the studio so it was set up, and then we'd go back and do the second half. So we do the first half of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, second half. So the hardest job was the guy or gal who was doing my wardrobe to make sure I had the right shirt and tie on from the
Right.
first one. What, 1,200 episodes, only one screw up. One time I came out for the second half, and one of the contestants said, "Is that the shirt and tie you had on?" And the poor wardrobe guy went looking through his Polaroid. Oh, no. So that was the day. We do the first half of each show, take a dinner break while the crew was. Then the second half, we'd go and they'd run around the supermarket.
So it was a long day for everyone, because if you were a contestant on the first or second show, you were there for the long run.
Yeah, it was long for everybody. But it was a good set, happy. Everybody on the set was just doing their job, and which every set I've worked on pretty much has been that way. Everybody was happy to have the gig, happy to be working. All the different sitcoms and episodics I worked on were really great experiences.
Now, you mentioned wardrobe a little bit. You had some of the best sweaters in TV during that time, right? What is there a story behind that? Were they yours? Where did those sweaters come from?
My producer was Al Howard, was an older gentleman, and that's where the sweaters came. I think they only lasted the first 2 or 3 years, and then the show, I think, transitioned from Lifetime to another network, and they wanted to hip it up a little bit, so they got rid of the sweaters and put me in the shirt and tie to look like a supermarket manager, which is what I played on TV.
Right. Par for the course.
Yeah. So, like I said, the producer was older, and he put me in those Bill Cosby sweaters, but I think on the third season they came in and they said, no, 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 we're hip. That was, 93, but
Right.
they said no more with the sweaters. You got a shirt and tie.
Now, one of the most popular fan questions that we got for this episode today had to do with the contestant sweaters. Did they get to keep those? Do you have any of those old, awesome looking
I
contestant sweaters?
I should put them on eBay. I think I've got 4 or 5. Uh, they keep them. No, I think the winners got to keep theirs. Good question, and I don't know, and we'll probably never know. But
It's one of
no,
the
they
mysteries.
watch them and use them on the other ones.
So you guys are off and running with Lifetime, 1990 to 1995. One of the most, and I don't know if you, at what point you possibly realize this, but your entrance on the show is one of the most iconic things about the show. You running down in your sprint down that one aisle to get to your mark. Is that something that you were told, hey, David, we need you to run out there? Or what was the idea behind the sprint to start the show?
I think that I have no idea because I had nothing to do with producing it or anything. I was a hired gun, and I did as said. I think
They said run, and you said I got you.
Where do you want me to run, and how fast?
That's right.
They wanted to build the excitement with the audience screaming, and then have the host come running. It was a great idea. I never knew that stuck in people's mind. But yeah, when you think of it now, Pat Sajak and everybody just strolls leisurely out.
They're either there or they just walk out.
Yeah.
So in the early seasons, and some fans may not know this, but in the early seasons, you guys had these awesome costumed fellas that would kind of run in the aisles and just, be in the way kind of thing. Kind of talk to us a little bit about that, because that clearly didn't last very long.
Yes, again, when the show transitioned, they got rid of the character. We had a guy who put on a big rubber head costume, or he'd be a banana or some character. And if as I remember, if the contestants saw him coming, they had to turn around and
run the other way or something, and they couldn't touch him or anything.
Huh?
They weren't allowed to bump into him or touch him or anything.
In fact, there was a $1 penalty if they hit a cameraman.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right.
Because the cameramen, poor guys, they're invisible to the contestants, as well as the audience watching. They're just sitting there with these beta cams on their shoulders, running around, and the contestants get so crazy, they don't know what they're doing, and so that was impressed on them. You hit a cameraman, it's $100 off your total or something like that.
So the food was fake, right?
No, some was, some wasn't. First couple of years, they used real food for everything, including the meat. So that meant at the beginning of the shoot day, a couple of production assistants would take shopping carts, put the meat in the cases, and at the end of the shooting day, one of them would load the turkeys into another one and take them back to the freezer. Another one would follow them with a mop, mopping up the blood because they had thawed out. And after 2 seasons, they wisened up and said, we can streamline this. We'll make plastic and we'll weight it. So if it's a 20-pound turkey, it weighs 20 pounds, but it's like you see in Asian restaurants in the window, that plastic food. But the Twinkies and the hot dogs and the cheeses, those were all real. The Twinkies, by the end of a 5-month shoot, were almost like fermented. I mean, the packages were all swollen up, and all but the meat was fake after the
Got it.
first couple of seasons.
So, as a fan of the show, and this has to be something you've probably noticed just being involved with it for so long. There are certain little things that happen during the sweep where you're kind of like, So the first one has to be the debate between the coffee and the candy, right? Like, do I sit here and grind the coffee? Do I fill up the candy and try to weigh it? Like, what is your take on the wasting? Because I viewed it as wasting time. Like, why are we going to wait? Because it happens every time. They're rushing to grind the coffee. They're trying to reach for stuff around them while the coffee's grinding, or they leave it and come back later. It just seems like it wasn't worth it. As the host, what was your official take on the candy and the coffee and those similar sort of things?
As the host, I had no idea what went out there. But that was the producer's domain. That's why they did what they did, and I did what I did. I was just there cheering on the contestants as they come back with their carts and sending them out, and keeping the other contestants engaged, because we couldn't see really what they're doing. We sent them off and then
right,
twiddle our thumbs until they come back with a full cart and pick up a fresh one. Yeah, I always wondered about the grinding of the coffee. I thought, but it was a high dollar amount, so
it was.
People took it very seriously, and they had game plans. And we had people who would go into their market when some markets closed at night. They'd know the manager, and they'd go in and work out their game plan. I mean, they took it very seriously.
I'll tell you what, the ones who would fill up the cart with all the meat and then waste their time running back and forth to get another cart, there were expensive small items out there. I don't know what we were doing, wasting our time on the huge meats that you can only fit like 3 into a cart.
That is the dirty little secret of Supermarket Sweep. That exactly what you said. And again, in 1,200 episodes or however many we did, you load up your cart with a turkey, 5 turkeys, 5 briskets of beef. It's heavy. You got to take it back, pick up a fresh cart. One woman that to my recollection, stayed in the health and beauty aisle and loaded up with 5 contact lens solution, 5 hair dyes, 5 cold things, 5 back, and which don't weigh squat.
Right.
You load up your cart with just the health and beauty, and she skunked them. I don't know why nobody figured it out. You did.
And they're struggling too. They're struggling to get the meat into the cart, and then they have to push it back, and you're just wasting so much. I would scream at the TV all the time when I was younger, like, why? It doesn't make sense.
I have to tell you, that is the one comment I heard more than anything. People would say, we would sit around as a family and yell at our TV set. I don't know if people do it on other game shows, but they love to yell at the TV contestants. Why are you doing that? Which is the mark of a really good game show, I think. If you've got people that engaged at home that are watching a TV show and yelling at the people on TV.
100%.
Sometimes, but that's
Talk to me about the giant bonuses. So you had these huge inflatable things out. I remember the Jolly Green Giant was one. I think there was like a Hawaiian Punch dude. Like, where did those come from?
The Tootsie Roll. They were all promo items.
The Tootsie Roll. The company just sent them to you?
Yeah. There were behind the scene things that I wasn't privy to. But if your product was buying ads on the show, you might very well find your product prominently on what they call an end cap in the supermarket at the end of aisle, or your product being used in the questions at the first half. Is this package of Kraft mozzarella worth
Right.
more than? So there was that if intrigue. I hate to, but if you bought time on the show, you got your products focused on the show.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
So
if Tootsie Roll bought ads, they had a big blow up Tootsie Roll as one of the inflatables.
it's called a perk, you know. It's a little bit of perks here and there.
Quid pro quo.
Right,
You know,
right.
ads on the show, you pay to make the show work, you're going to get a little free publicity.
So the first run on Lifetime wraps up in 95. What does that look like? Do you know going into season 5 it's going to be your last, or no?
Never knew from season to. In fact, I had forgotten there was a gap between it. I just know that it ran continuously for 14 years from 1990 to 2013, 2003. No, we would end the season, have a wrap party, and you wouldn't know until a few months before starting that we got picked up again.
So you don't get picked back up by Lifetime, but PAX TV picks you back up in 2000. What does that look like?
PAX, PAX, yeah. They were better as far as me doing promos. They had me going pretty much all over the place doing promos. That was great. But again, my checks cleared. I came into work. It was the same schedule. Just that we no longer shot at NBC Burbank. We shot it way out by Magic Mountain in obviously for the producer, less expensive studio.
Right.
Without air conditioning, I might add.
Oh, geez. Okay.
They couldn't cool it, and it's high desert, so it got warm. We dropped a few contestants and a few cameramen from heat.
I can only imagine.
Heat to rent.
So before, let's step outside the sweep a little bit. Before you land the supermarket sweep gig, you were on some of the greatest TV shows of the 80s. And I don't know how many people realize this. I only wrote down a couple. But Moonlighting, Matlock, Punky Brewster, Married with Children, St. Elsewhere, Three's Company, Fame. You were Thurston Howell the Fourth in a Gilligan's Island. That is incredible. Do you have any tidbits or memories from anything prior to the sweep?
How much time do you have?
Give us one or two. I mean, you were on so much.
Thank you. Yes, I have had a great career. My two favorites out of everything, it's hard to pick, but would be the 3 episodes of Three's Company I did, and the Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island. Just because, yeah, that Thurston Howell the Fourth, and anybody who knows Gilligan's Island knows that the Howells never had children. But what happened? Jim Backus couldn't do it at the last minute because of health.
Mm-hmm.
So they, instead of rewriting the whole script, they just changed it from Thurston Howell III, Thurston Howell the Fourth, his son, which they didn't have, and instead of Lovey, it was Mumsy. We've got a terrible problem on the island. What are you gonna do? But I did those last 3 episodes of Three's Company. They were spinning off John Ritter onto another series, so they had to get rid of the 2 gals. The blonde, who hadn't been with the show that long, they just said, "Oh, she's going to go to she's a nurse going to a hospital in Hawaii." She's gone. But Janet, played by Joyce DeWitt, bless her heart, she'd been with it from the beginning. So it was the last 3 episodes were her meeting me, getting engaged to me, and then the last episode was our wedding, and uh, that was one of the highlights of my career. Getting to know Ritter and Joyce, those three folks were terrific, and then walking onto the Gilligan's Island set,
Iconic, absolutely iconic.
With the professor and Marianne, and Gilligan and the skipper. I grew up on that show, and here they are. And Jim Backus made it for one afternoon to shoot a little thing because he was not doing well. But those are the two highlights for me outside of Broadway. Broadway was a highlight. But
for sure.
The TV world, getting to know John Ritter and the Gilligan's Island. And yeah, I occasionally I'll look back at my resume, and the fear was that doing a game show was going to ruin my acting career, which it not ruin. I mean it, but they never saw me as an actor again. You know,
right.
I have luckily done a lot of religious films out of Wisconsin. There's a studio in Wisconsin that I do a lot of.
Is that where you did Scrooge out of?
Yes.
That was a good one. Yep.
Yeah. They call them faith-based movies. They don't want to call them Christian movies, really, because that scares people off. And as we've done them over the 30 years of doing them with Salty Earth Pictures, they have gotten much, much better. Budgets have gotten better. The writing has gotten funnier and certainly less religiosity.
Gotcha.
It's got to be good stories, well shot, well acted, that happen to slip in the message. But that's
so as we
I've done outside it. I still get to do stage work.
So as we segue into the 90s, some of it's during the sweep time, some of it's after the first run of the sweep. You were on probably 3 of the biggest shows of the 90s: Full House, Beverly Hills 90210, and Family Matters. Like, if you're a 90s kid, you grew up on all 3. That was your jam. Do you have any memories from being on any of those 3 sets?
Oh, sure. Let's see, Full House. Unfortunately, that was the week my father died, and I had to fly out right after we taped, so I was a little distracted. But it was a good set. What were the other ones you met? Oh, 90210. I think I got 2-3 days on that, and it was further down its run, so it didn't have any of the iconic originals.
Got it.
90210.
And then Family Matters, you shared the stage with Urkel.
Yes. That was fun. That was a good one. Yes. One of the funniest lines I've ever had, but I'm not going to go into because it takes 5 minutes to set up the line. But one of the funniest lines ever in a sitcom, and that was a good set. They were all good sets. I had heard, when I think I did Webster, and I had heard there was trouble on that set, and no. Punky Brewsters were good sets, all good sets. I really have no bummer stories, thank heavens.
See, that's great, though. So before we get you out of here, we have a couple of fan questions. The first question comes in. During the run of Sweep, obviously it's a ratings game because TV is always a ratings game. But are you comparing ratings just for the sake of ratings, or are you comparing ratings as compared to other game shows? Like, does it change ratings-wise because it's a game show, or is it still just about what the number is?
Eyeballs. I think that's
Eyeballs?
it. Again, I'm not involved with the business end of it, but it's how many eyeballs are watching.
Any stories about working with Johnny Gilbert?
Oh,
I'm sure you have a million.
no, not
No?
really. No, he's just a really great guy.
Right?
Nothing extraordinary, weird. He was just a really nice man. And at one point, I think he realized because this was for cable and cable was relatively new. I think after season 5, he realized that the residual payment was not what he was used to with Jeopardy and other shows he'd done. And he left in a hot second. And that's when they brought on Randy West, who was great. Randy and I are still friends today. But Johnny was just a mensch, a guy.
Right.
You know. And
for sure.
Boy, nice guy. We only spent the first couple of years with him on the set. Because after that, we would shoot the shows, and then in post, they'd put in the voiceover. So
Gotcha.
When Randy West came in, he wouldn't spend a lot of. But the first couple of years, Johnny was there warming up the audience. He was standing at a podium with his script and warming it up, doing it in real time. But I think they found it got to be more efficient to bring him in only in post. So we weren't. Randy and I became good friends, still are.
Wonderful. We got 2 more questions, then we'll get you out of here. We get this one a lot. We do a lot on the show with Boy Meets World, and you had the opportunity to be on St. Elsewhere with the amazing Bill Daniels. Any Bill Daniels stories from St. Elsewhere?
I didn't work with him.
All right, there you go. Easy peasy.
I had 1 or 2 and they weren't with him. The amazing Bill, you're right. I worked with 2 or 3 of the other regulars, but I didn't work with him. It was I got to do mostly sitcoms, but a few episodics. Got to play a couple of killers. So I had that. I got to choke somebody to death on set. Got to die on stage, on screen a couple of times. Yeah, mostly sitcoms though, the comedy stuff.
And then the last one to get you out here, we asked this one to all of our guests because we focused so much on the late 90s and early 2000s. So thinking back to the first run of the sweep, which was the mid 90s, just the way life was at that time, is there one thing you miss from the 90s?
The price of food.
For sure.
Price of gas. Yeah.
Oh.
Growing up in Florida, gas sold for 25 cents a gallon. Boy, do I sound like an old guy. I can remember seeing a gas station sign 25 cents. The 90s. I had just gotten married, buying a house. Life different in the 90s? Boy, that's a good question, and I'll have to get back to you on that, Chris.
It's going to come to you in the middle of the night one morning. You're just going to wake up and be like, this is what it is.